Exponents. Exponents are used to show repeated multiplication. Just a quick way of doing it. So, for example, if we had 3 to the 4th power, I would call 3 our base. It's the number on the bottom. And then 4 is the one that's raised up above. It's like a superscript. And that is called our exponent. And that means how many times you multiply that base by itself. So that's going to be written as 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. And rather than just multiplying them in order, I'm going to use the associative property. And I'm just going to group these together and these together just to make it easier to multiply. So 3 times 3 is 9, and then 3 times 3 is 9, and then 9 times 9 is 81. So that's just a shortcut for using exponents. You don't want to get 3-digit numbers. See, if I would have done it the other way, it would have been 3 times 3 is 9, 9 times 3 is 27, 27 times 3, ooh, I might have to think about that. Alright, and a square is going to mean to the 2nd power. So like 3 squared would mean 3 times 3. And just think the reason is because this has 2 dimensions. The square only has 2 dimensions, like length and width. And a cube has 3 dimensions. It has length, width, and then height. I could have called that one height. There we go. So length, width, and height. You can also call that depth. So that has 3 dimensions. So it's to the 3rd power. Alright, negative 2, if we put it in parentheses and put it to the 4th power, and negative and then a 2 to the 4th power are different. And this is a little challenging to grasp at first. So I'm going to break it down for you. Breaking it down. So the first one, the negative 2 to the 4th power, just means negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. And to do that, we would do negative 2 times negative 2, that's 4. Negative 2 times negative 2, that's 4. Multiply them together and we have 16. So that's the first one. The other one's different because it's not in parentheses. So we actually just bring that sign down because that sign means the opposite of 2 to the 4th. I'm going to write that off to the side. This means the opposite. And that means opposite sign. So the opposite sign of 2 to the 4th. So that means I'm going to find out what 2 to the 4th is, and then I'm just going to make it negative. Because 2 to the 4th is a positive answer. So this would look like this. We would have a negative, and then I'm just going to do the 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. I'm going to get that answer, and I know 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. So that's 16, and then I'm going to bring that negative sign down. So it's negative 16 for this one. So anytime you have a negative with no parentheses, it just means the opposite sign. So it's always going to be negative. So if parentheses are not used with a negative number, like our negative 2 here, then just bring the sign down. And we always need to use parentheses when we plug anything in for a variable. So, here's what I mean. So we're always going to use those parentheses when we plug in a number, especially when we raise it to an exponent. Because remember, the negatives, we can get the wrong sign for our answer if we don't. And I will show you what I mean. So an example for that, if it said simplify, if you were asked to simplify negative 4 squared plus 3 times 2 to the third, or 2 cubed, that is not in parentheses, so that just means the opposite of 4 squared. So we just bring the sign down. It's the opposite of 4 times 4. And 4 squared is 16. And then we also do our other exponents. I'm just doing PEMDAS. And I do exponents before I do multiply and divide and add and subtract. So I'm going to do my other exponents as well. So 2 to the third means 2 times 2 times 2. And 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. I'm going to bring everything else down, including the operations. And now I'm done with my exponents, so I move on to multiply and divide. And I have 3 times 8, which is 24. I'm going to bring down my sign. Negative 16 plus 24. And then the bigger number is positive, so I'm going to subtract these. 24 minus 16 is 8. Bigger number is positive, so it's positive 8. Okay, now we're going to use what that note told us to use parentheses. So now we're going to evaluate for a variable. So evaluate, this is another example. So evaluate 2x squared plus 2x minus 14 for x equals negative 3. So I'm going to use parentheses when I plug in that negative 3. So it's going to be 2 parentheses negative 3 parentheses squared plus 2 parentheses negative 3 minus 14. So I just put a negative 3 both spots where I had an x. And now I still follow PEMDAS. And I'll write that to the side to keep track of what I'm doing. So I do parentheses first, but I don't have anything in parentheses to do. Like negative 3 is all by itself, negative 3 is all by itself. So I can move right over to exponents. And now it's exponents. That means negative 3 times negative 3, which is a positive 9. So now it's 2 parentheses 9, or 2 times 9. And then 2 times negative 3 comes next, because I've already done my exponents, and that's negative 6, and then minus 14. So we have some more multiplication. 2 times 9 is 18, minus 6, minus 14. And now I can add and subtract from left to right. So 18 minus 6 is 12. 12 minus 14 is negative 2. All right, let's step it up just a little notch and deal with those negatives. Ah, negative numbers should make you frown. Come on now. All right, as we suck it up and deal with our negatives, We have 12 minus y to the third, and we are evaluating, forgot to put evaluate, so evaluate 12 minus y to the third. For y equals -2. This one's a little tricky because you have a minus sign and you have a negative and it's cubed. So a lot going on here. So I'm going to bring it down. 12 minus, I'm going to put my parentheses when I plug in for a letter, and -2, close my parentheses, to the third power. And -2 to the third means -2 times -2 times -2. And I know there's an odd number of negatives, so I know that answer is negative. I'll prove it. That's +4. 4 times -2 is -8. So this answer is -8. But I have a minus sign as well that I'm bringing down. So I have 12 minus a -8, and 12 minus -8 is really 12 plus 8, which is 20. So be careful on those negatives. Don't rush through that. Make sure you show each of your steps. And as we get better with negatives, we realize they're about the same as dealing with positives. We just need to remember our rules. Now you can flex as you build that negative muscle in your brain.